So it seems that another 40k Combat Patrol box has been removed for an update. It looks like there's another date in the calendar for the next Warhammer reveal online, and there's a fun new Chaos Enforcer Space Marine that's been revealed. Let's do a quick roundup of a bunch of 40k news. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking through a few interesting 40k news things. Just a short roundup today of a few things that I found interesting enough to talk about in a video that didn't really need one all to themselves. First up, in one thing that was kind of expected to happen at some point, but now it looks like it actually has, is Combat Patrol Aeldari being gone. In 10th edition, Games Workshop has been updating all the Combat Patrols, and they've often tended to do so within, say, 1 to 2 months of the Codex being released, and for a few factions that's occasionally been a clue that their Codex is coming kind of imminently. We already knew that Codex Aeldari would be one of the next ones in 2025. Games Workshop had previously said that it would be Astra Militarum first and then Aeldari after that. So going into the new year, it's maybe not too unexpected that the Combat Patrol box has gone away. It does kind of imply that Codex Aeldari will be coming sometime in January or February. It might be a bit of a heads up for this being a kind of last chance to buy though. Currently they appear to be gone from the Games Workshop web store in all their different regions, Australia, the UK and the USA. But given that it was a fairly popular box set, there should still be a fair few available in discount retailers for a little bit of time to come. Those will gradually go away, and then the sets will be a bit more expensive and only available second hand online and things. Just take a look down the channel affiliate retailers. It looks like Wargame Portal in the USA and Taschengeld Deep in Germany and the EU both have some in stock. Looks like Element Games in the UK is saying they're sold out of them. I really can't check Fenris Workshop and Gap Games in Canada and Australia due to regional restrictions on where you can see stock from. In any case, if you were absolutely certain that you were going to be getting a box set of this at some point, I'd just bear in mind that it's not going to be in stock at a reasonable price that much longer. I think as Combat Patrol box sets go, the 9th edition one for Aeldari was one of the better ones out there. It's the one that has a Farseer on foot, 10 Guardians that can be either Storm Guardians or Defenders, 6 Windrider jet bikes and a Wraithlord. For points in game at the moment, that's around about 485 points, which is on the upper end for Combat Patrols at the moment. About 2.9 points per dollar is okay, and a discount of around about 40% versus buying individually. I think that's better than any of the updated 10th edition ones that Games Workshop have come out with. Typically they've tended to be somewhere between 25% and 35%. In terms of sort of meta Eldar units, the Wraithlord and the Windriders maybe haven't been used quite so much, though Farseers and Guardians have often been staples. Obviously everything could change with codexes though, particularly with new formations focusing on jet bikes and Wraith hosts. So far we haven't had the new updated Aeldari one revealed yet. They showcased the Guard one but not the new Eldar one at the last reveal show. But in general there has been a bit of a trend of 10th edition Combat Patrol box sets. The discounts have generally been reined in a bit to around about 30%ish, and they've also had a trend of taking out any big centerpiece models out of them, things like mainline battle tanks or things like the Wraithlord, and instead of been putting in things that are either mounted or infantry, maybe a light transport vehicle at most. I think the reason for that is to make it so the units can interact better at a more Combat Patrol actual skirmish level game mode. As often at that kind of level you just wind up having things that you basically just can't kill on the other side of the tabletop. But between the big model removals and the lower discount, it's generally tended to mean that there's less points in the box as well. So the vast majority of the 10th edition Combat Patrol updates haven't exactly been very favourable, usually being lower in points than the ones that they replaced, and feeling that there's less overall plastic and excitement in the box and usually lower points values. Not all of them are bad, but the majority have been at least a slight downgrade in my opinion. It does mean that for the rest of 2025 there's going to be a lot more current box sets going away. With the Aeldari one going away, some of the more standout remaining ones I would rate as these ones. The Drukhari one has long been considered one of the best ones, with really quite a nice mix of units, and 2 big sailboat skimmers, which I think is kind of fun. The Grey Knight one doesn't have the biggest discount in the world, but is a pretty great microcosm of the faction, and you could get literally 3 of them if you wanted to, and have basically a 2,000 point army near enough right there. I'd say the Chaos Demon one is a particularly helpful one if you are going Khorne Demons, of course. It's just a little bit more generous than the average one, with maybe 1 more unit than you might expect in there compared with most boxes, though obviously not exactly the most help if you want to collect, say, Demons of Nurgle or Tzeentch or whatever. It could be better used for armies like the Death Guard or the Thousand Sons though. The 9th edition box sets for loads of Plague Bearers and loads of Zangors weren't exactly the best received out of those, and I feel like they'd have a bit more of a solid chance to be more useful after the update. Next up, and Games Workshop revealed another new Space Marine the other day. This one's the Traitor Enforcer miniature. We had a Loyalist Overseer miniature last week who definitely had some fun, ornate chaplain style vibes, and the idea of these guys are that these are the ones that oversee the ranks of mortal soldiers that might be fighting hand in hand with the Space Marines, perhaps mass ranks of Solar Auxilia or other Imperial or Chaos militias. The Loyalist ones apparently tends to more inspire acts of bravery and valour with leading by example and bombastic oration, whereas as you might expect, a lot of the Traitor ones tend to be a bit more merciless and direct brutal overseers. That seems to be modelled by this guy with his rather demonic style helm and hefting a great big power whip in his left hand there. Compared with the Loyalist one, he isn't really quite that showy. A bit more of a straightforward, direct, simplistic model, but also one that's quite well done, I think. He definitely feels like he's got a good amount of character there, directing his luckless charges, unless they want to feel the wrath of that whip, and they do seem to have a couple of head swap choices for him, with a demonic one or sort of scarred bare-headed option where he looks like he's lost his right eye. He's not exactly the single most bombastic or over-the-top Chaos Marine that we've ever seen. The broadly reaction seems to have been pretty good to him online. Could be nice enough for maybe a Wordbearer's character or perhaps a Night Lord one with that helm. And as a sort of more minor Forge World resin character, he'll be around the £28 or $45 mark most likely. Certainly on the pricey side versus plastic support characters, but maybe one of the examples of Forge World that isn't quite so drastically different from Games Workshop's expensive plastic character prices these days. Let me know what you think of the model though. Generally I think they've done pretty well with him. Next up, it looks like there's a solid hint for the next model reveals for Warhammer 40k. Usually Games Workshop tends to tie in their preview shows with big tournaments and things. They almost always have a model reveal at the Las Vegas Open, and while Games Workshop themselves haven't formally announced it yet or said what specific game systems will actually get reveals for them, I took a quick look at the event timetable and it does seem that there's a Games Workshop preview listed for 8 PM on Thursday the 16th of January. So unless Games Workshop changes their mind or cancels things like they did a couple of times last year, I guess that's the next time that we might most reasonably see some fun new model reveals. Due to that being on the more Pacific side of the USA, it's not going to translate to a very sociable time here in the UK, around about 4 AM here. I'll certainly aim to be on hand to make a video of the reveals if I can. I guess in other places around the world that'll be 5 AM France and Germany, I guess technically on the 17th, same with the UK, at 11 PM US Eastern Time. I'm sure Games Workshop will more formally announce that sometime over the next week or two. I feel like the most likely thing that we'd be seeing would be more Emperor's Children for Warhammer 40k. It felt like we'd had the main thrust of the Aeldari and Deathcore releases last time, though always possible for a bit more for them. We haven't seen any sort of launch box or combat patrol for the Aeldari yet, so it's definitely not impossible that there could be more new miniatures, even if they have done rather well for their aspects. Given we've just had Fulgrim though, and we've already had loads of teasers for Noise Marine bits, they've almost got to be fairly soon on the agenda. And given that we didn't get it at Christmas, maybe some sort of launch box with the codex in it, plus a bunch of Noise Marines and other stuff, could be one of the things that they could unveil. Otherwise though, if it wasn't Slaanesh that they wanted to focus on again, maybe Imperial Knights could be another possibility. They were billed as the third codex coming out in 2025, and Imperial Knights didn't get an actual 40k model release with their codex in 9th. Feels like they could be at least odds on to get something. I guess we'll wait and see with that. Otherwise, the Kill Team and Heresy reveals could definitely have interesting things for 40k collectors as well. I feel like there'd be good odds for another Kill Team box set reveal, given that we've had Brutal and Cunning now. And Heresy can always have some fun stuff, particularly for 40k relevant factions. Knights often have the most direct crossover, and they might redo some more of those in plastic. And whenever they eventually get around to doing the Forge World Custodes units in plastic, that should also be quite big news for 40k collectors too. Next up, there's some minor news with the Combat Patrol magazine, in that it looks like it's coming to its next country after the UK. Apparently the Hachette Park Works magazine is going to be launching in Germany, and really quite soon. The first issue billed to be releasing on the 8th of January. I've seen links for it shared to the Hachette Park Works website. Again, not sure if I can't really see it due to the regional restrictions there. Certainly could be interesting, particularly for some of the first few issues. The first one with 2 characters for just a few euros is a good one. The Ron Ryan's Leaper one is good value. And the Barb Gaunt one that comes a little bit after that is one of the better options as well. Based on what they've done in the past, it's likely to be coming to a good few other places around the world in 2025. Previously we'd had a few sneaky hints of spring from the USA, and I'll certainly share it when we do get news. Otherwise, at least so far, Games Workshop don't seem to have done any sort of silhouette teaser show this year. I guess certainly not impossible they could do something fun Monday or something. The last year I believe it was shortly prior to New Year. It's maybe kind of a shame if they've stopped doing those, as I thought they were quite good fun. Last year we got glimpses of the Orc Big Mech, Custodes Shield Captain and Kroot Lone Spear, plus some Solar Auxilia. To be honest, the style they did them in before tended to be at least fairly revealing for what the miniatures actually were though. You can more or less work out what you're looking at when they give you a turnaround of the model. If they don't turn up in the next few days though, it might just be that they've decided not to do them this time around, and I guess we'll be waiting for more fun model reveals for 40k on the 16th. Otherwise, for 40k news and releases, the main thing that we're waiting on is the Deathcore Krieg box set. This one's really quite likely to be the next 40k release, and given that this was revealed quite a long time ago, I feel like it really could drop any week now. Feels like there's a good chance they could announce it going up for pre-order on Sunday. I'll certainly be looking forward to the new guard codex and fun new models if they do. As ever with these launch boxes though, it might be a big gap between when this one comes out and when the actual Astra Militarum Codex comes out alongside the last of the new Krieg models, and it could be a little bit frustrating for points reveals for 40k as well. As you often know, the Codex's new rules and the printed points cost, but then they just change them all really quite radically, so it's kind of hard to interpret the Codex until they've done that. Otherwise though, for this week it's the Orruk War Clans for Age of Sigmar, a fun scenery bit and a new character on the right, and a new Sigmar Spearhead box that maybe could be of some use to some Beastnagger Orc collectors. I do quite like the models for them. There's a Blood Bowl book and a whole bunch of 412 Resin Star players, and then a bunch of Mechanicum stuff that came from the big box set for the Legions Imperialis game mode. They're all going on sale individually in these 3 different sections here, if you did want reinforcements of either the infantry, automata or the armoured conveyors. As ever, for any of the plastic stuff, feel free to check out the discount retailers linked down in the video description. They'll all be putting things up for pre-order somewhere between the next 12 to 18 hours, and can save a fair bit on Games Workshop things versus the Warhammer web store, and these ones help to support the channel as well. In any case though, I'll leave that one there for now. Let me know what you make of the Aeldari Combat Patrol going away and hopes for the new one. What do you reckon that we'll get for Warhammer 40k and LVO, if anything? And let me know your thoughts on the fun Traitor Enforcer mini. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, and I do tend to post new ones just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description if you'd like to help support. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.